All right, before we get this episode started, we just want to apologize. One of our cameras died in the middle of filming, so there's going to be a small gap with no video of Ethan, but we got that resolved, and it's still a great episode, so we hope that doesn't keep you from watching it. So here's the episode. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the podcast about nothing in particular. I'm your host, Nathan Perry.
And I'm Adam Hope.
And today we have Ethan Sample with us, fresh off a massive amount of wins at IBJJF Houston Open.
Yes, sir.
It's nice to have you today, Ethan.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. So before we jump into talking about your success at this Open, can you give us a little backstory about how you got into Jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, it's actually a really cool, interesting story. I don't think it is like a lot of others who have started jiu-jitsu when either they were a kid or maybe they got into it because they listened to another podcast of somebody who inspires them to just be more active. For me, it was a combination of a little bit of everything, but in 2021, I was living in Florida for a short period of time after COVID. My wife and I were doing grad school, and she was doing Florida State. I was just doing an online program at Johns Hopkins, and we just weren't into it because everything was still online. So we moved back home to Oklahoma, and when I moved back to Oklahoma, we were staying in Edmond, and her dad, my father-in-law, really wanted to start training more. He was doing a private lesson once a week, and sometimes would go to Tulsa and train with his buddies for a second time, I guess, in the week. It would be a weekend thing for him. And he was like, if you're going to be living this close, man, we should train together. And so I grew up watching The Ultimate Fighter, and I knew all the moves. I just didn't know how to do them correctly or apply them without an improper amount of force or anything like that. So it kind of just started in the garage at his house on the mats like you guys have right there, those balance form mats off of Amazon. And I went from training 0 times in my life to real quickly it became a bug for me, and I became addicted. And one session a week with my main instructor, Steve Jones, turned into, okay, now I'm going to start training at the advanced class. I jumped straight into the advanced just because he was the instructor, and the rest is history. That all started in August of 2021, and it kind of ran in conjunction with a whole, paradigm shifting event that took place in my life was starting jiu-jitsu, because I really, at the time, I was weighing 205 pounds. I was a little overweight. I ate fast food every day. I was just an unhealthy person and wasn't working out hardly at all. I could still run a mile in under 8 minutes. So that was my, prerequisite to know that I was still in shape. But sure. I was still winded and would almost throw up after I would run it that fast. So while I was starting to train jiu-jitsu, I was also lifting 6 times a week at Planet Fitness and in the garage at home, and just really changed my life. I turned it around 180, and I was doing a Murph every other day. I just kind of became addicted to fitness and the pain of it all, and the way I felt afterward, seeing the remarkable difference in my body. So I kind of took a tangent off of jiu-jitsu there, but it all started in August of 2021. And then from there, I have started training now multiple times a week, sometimes twice or more a day. And jiu-jitsu is what I want to do with my life. It's my career at this point. I
love it, man. I love to hear that. Before we jump into that side of it, did you grow up playing sports? What's your background in athleticism? What'd you do?
Okay, so I was homeschooled for a few short years in my life before finally attending public school. And then when I was in public school, I was in Oklahoma for that entire period of my life. But from 5th grade until I graduated, I lived in a town called Cushing, Oklahoma. We have, the population has grown since, but I just remember when I was in town, it was around maybe 8,500 people, high prison population, but it's an oil town. So there was a lot of oil pipelines and oil field tanks and stuff like that. So it's small town. We have oil money though, so athletics was a huge deal. Not every store closed down on Friday like a Texas town, but I mean, we were the pride of the town. The football team was, the wrestling team was a big program. I wrestled 1 year in high school, but yeah, I pretty much played every sport for all 4 years of high school. I tried every sport, every one we had to offer.
And yeah, that's the thing about doing high school sports and then doing that, going from 100 to sometimes 0, just having no outlet for athleticism, no outlet for working out. So, yeah, kudos for you for getting back into the gym and getting back into working out.
It was like while I was in college, though, I didn't like lift or do the regimen that I had in high school because there wasn't a coach pushing me. But me and my buddies would play at the Colvin Center at Oklahoma State, and we just run back basketball games as many times as we could, stay on the court because winter stays on. And so that was how I stayed active in college. But that's kind of where like everything also degraded at the same time, because once some of the buddies graduated, we stopped playing. And then once we stopped playing, that's when COVID started happening. And COVID was like a blessing in disguise. There's a silver lining to it all. But there was a time where I was not the way I am now, so I'm very blessed.
What were you weighing? You said you were weighing about 205. But what are you weighing now?
I weigh anywhere between like 168 to 175. It just depends on where I'm at for competition and water weight. Today I'm probably weighing like 170, 172.
And the reason I ask that is what weight class do you usually compete in?
So depends on the promotion that I'm fighting for. For ADCC, it's in kilograms, so 77 kilos, or for the open tournaments, they do 76. So that's 169 to 170 pounds, give or take a few tenths. And then for IBJJF, or the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, I compete at the lightweight category, so that is in the gi, or as in Portuguese they say com kimono, that is 168 pounds, and then for the no gi or sem kimono, it is 162.6 pounds. So
gotcha. There's
a considerable weight cut that you have to make for the fact that they think the gi weighs like 5 or 8 pounds. I don't know why they think it weighs so much, but it is a considerable amount of water weight that you have to drop to make weight on the second day of competition, because the way IBJJF does it, you weigh in right before you compete, whereas with ADCC, it's night before, so you have some time to rehydrate, replenish, things like that.
Right.
But yeah, I compete at lightweight, so anywhere from like 160 to 175, you can find me training and competing at those weights.
So a lot of people, they get into jiu-jitsu and it's just, a hobby, or it's a fun thing to do, or maybe just help get in shape or learn some self-defense. But what about it? I guess, how did you fall in love with it so much where now that you're pursuing it as a professional career?
I mean, I'd have to say that it has a lot to do with where I train and who I trained with and under. My instructor, Steve, he's awesome. I mean, he's always kept me in the right headspace about competition and never puts pressure on me when I'm injured to still compete or anything like that. He's a very good friend, aside from an actual really good coach. He understands the game and the long-term vision, so he's really helped me implement some goals that are almost scary to think about, but at the same time, that's what we train for. And then aside from where and who I train with, a big thing for me was just growing up, I was always smaller. In the sports that I played, I could very easily be kind of overrun in terms of how my stature was. I was a very small kid, so in high school, I probably weighed 125, 130 pounds soaking wet. And when you're playing football at that weight or that size, you just get leveled. And I wasn't necessarily picked on, but there were some times where things like that did happen in the locker room, where it was like jocular activity, obviously, but at my expense of my self-esteem or my confidence because of how small I was. And I was always athletic and I would say talented to a certain degree, but because of genetics and physique, I wasn't always the guy that should start in certain positions. Like I wasn't the fastest, but I was fast. You know what I mean? So when you're trying to win, you understand that your coaches, they do those things to win. So I never took anything personally, but the first time I competed for jiu-jitsu, this is funny, my wife, she thought I was going to get crushed, because she doesn't know what's going to happen. It's my first ever white belt tournament. and I ended up winning second place, and I lost. It was like 5 matches. It was a crazy bracket. I had so many guys. They split it into 2 brackets, and I ended up losing to a teammate in the finals. And his name's Garrett. He's a really cool guy. He moved to Arizona, but tough training partner. But yeah, so I think I fell in love with it as soon as I realized, oh, I'm a grown man now, and I've actually flourished and come into my own, and like this is a time in my life where I can shine athletically, whereas like in the past I wasn't like up to their stature. Like when I wrestled in high school, I went 0-2 at every individual tournament. I won like 2 exhibition matches my entire career, and those were like JV matches. So it was fun to train and like be with such a good group of dudes in like a really tough program. But at the same time, that's why I think I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, is like I realized that only the smart can really like win, and like the strong also win, obviously, yes. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're intelligent, you can really flourish in jiu-jitsu. And same with like wrestling in high school. Obviously, talent and technique are all going to be very important factors, but I just felt like I was so new to it at the time that now that I'm at where I'm at in jiu-jitsu, I can tell that like, yeah, you got to be smart to be good at it, and it's not about brute strength all the time. You want to be strong, but it's not about brute strength in this sport. So it's actually really cool, and it was like something that I was really good at when I first started.
Yeah, and for people listening, Ethan is a blue belt competition competitor, blue belt. I don't think we mentioned that yet, but yeah, I like that you mentioned the mental aspect of that of jiu-jitsu. Me as a new white belt, that's something I've struggled with is finding time to even study what I've learned, because a lot of jiu-jitsu I feel like gets forgotten in between class to class. So how do you internalize these different techniques and moves and game plans?
So that's a really cool question. Actually, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but I think I'm neurotic in the sense that I can see something and visualize it, and like I know exactly how my body moves, and I can almost see myself doing the move as I watch a legend do the move, if that even makes sense. So when I watch a technique breakdown, it's internalized after just like 3 replays on Instagram or on YouTube or whatever, because of how often I watch high level jiu-jitsu. I know already the foundational movements that are important for having a good game, so to speak. But when you start to study the nuance to what makes somebody legendary and what makes somebody really good or entertaining, those moves, they stick with you. They're flashy, or maybe they're just really good, solid foundational techniques that always lead to a win or a victory. So for me, it's somehow the way my brain works, but also the amount of time that I spend studying film is, I would say, remarkable. Not necessarily everybody has the time like I do to do what I do. I'm pretty much a stay-at-home dad. I take care of my daughter full time. And then when I'm not taking care of her, like if I'm training or teaching a lesson somewhere, then my wife, she works from home. So I have an advantage, almost unfair advantage, I would say, in the time that I can spend studying. And then when you talk about like not just research and development to add skills to your game, like by using, different instructionals or YouTube videos or like just match breakdowns while you're watching matches, a very important aspect of jiu-jitsu to get better and to learn about your mistakes and what you did in your last matches. You have to record your matches in competition. And for those that don't compete, you can do that in your rounds at your local gym where you train. It's not awkward or weird to like set up a tripod and record your flow rounds or whatever you're doing at the gym, because that's just as important, especially if you're working on something you've never done before. I think another thing that's really important for like internalizing moves and stuff is like, once you drill something without resistance and you kind of understand the body movement and what needs to happen for you to secure a certain position, you really need to then start adding minimal increments of resistance as it goes on, because you're not going to learn what it's like to train. You're going to develop training scars if you train moves with improper level of resistance, or maybe with an opponent or a training partner that's kind of not giving you the right body movement in terms of like, hey, this is a normal reaction. And I'm a big fan of like what Joseph Chin talks about when he's one of the guys that has progressed super fast. He's a European trials, ADCC trials winner. He's only been training for like 5 years. He's a purple belt at B Team Jiu-Jitsu. And he attributes a lot of his success is just like not only watching the instructionals, but the way he drills is very commentary. It's like, hey, how did that feel? Did you feel like you could get out here? Did you feel like the sub was on? You know what I mean? Like asking questions like that are really important because moves aren't going to work in competition if you're not getting the right movement or so to speak. But yeah, I think that those are like some of the best ways to like actually learn. And that's the way I learn is just through drilling, slowly adding resistance, making sure I'm getting good reactions from my partners, but also just the time. I spend at least an hour and a half a day watching not only my previous match footage, but new instructionals or instructionals that I've already watched before where I've taken notes on a notepad. So I internalize it not just through like writing it down, but like I can explain with my own words what I'm hearing or listening to on the screen. So it's just, I mean, that's like one of the many ways most people learn anything is taking notes. So yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah, I definitely, someone like me or other people, or even, who knows, people at higher levels, it can be hard to write down and understand what you're even saying or understand what even happened. So I like the idea of recording your matches, recording your training sessions, your, rounds and everything. That sounds like a interesting way to do it for sure. So let's also talk about, you also teach at the Forge. You teach the fundamentals class.
Yeah.
How did you come about that? How did you, I guess, come into that role, I guess?
So it happened because of just extenuating circumstances. The instructor that was teaching took a sabbatical or a hiatus. He doesn't teach right now and was always the teacher. And so when he took a step away, the gym, really, we didn't have you couldn't have an effective advanced class on Tuesday nights like they were having by joining the fundamentals up to it, because there was just a lot of attention that needs to be dedicated to those who are coming up. And so the gym, I guess my instructor, Steve, and then a couple of other people at the Forge reached out and just asked, hey, would you be able to, switch off every 2 Tuesdays, like you do 2 Tuesdays, and then Professor Austin will do 2 Tuesdays, you know what I mean? So it really just kind of became a occurrence of natural circumstances that led to me being able to teach. And of course, I'm always open and willing to jump in there and teach because I wanted fundamental students to learn the things that were helping me in competition, because I didn't lose a lot of matches at white belt. That's not to say that I haven't lost a lot at blue belt now, because with every promotion comes new levels and stiff levels of competition. But at white belt, I felt like I had a really good game and stuff like that. So I really wanted to share with what I was learning. I wanted to share with those who are coming up, just so they could be successful too.
Yeah. And do you think, how long have you been teaching, by the way?
Oh, I mean, that's probably 4 months, 5 months. It hasn't been super long, maybe half a year at this point.
It's been at least 8 months, because I've been training for 8 months, and you've been teaching the fundamentals class as long as I've been there.
I've only been keeping track of like how long I've been doing jiu-jitsu. So when I started teaching, I guess I didn't really remember the date, but yeah, that makes sense. 8 months. It's quite a while.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I've learned a lot from you personally, so it's been really neat experience.
Sweet.
What was the question I had? Okay, so yeah. Do you think that teaching has also helped you progress as a jiu-jitsu player, practitioner?
Absolutely. When you're sitting in the middle of a competition, it's hard sometimes to listen to your coach's voice. I've been able to do that for a long time now, but I will say that once you start to have your own internal coaching voice, you're so used to saying to your students or whatever, you can explain techniques, move for move, detail for detail, even going down to like the smallest little details, like, oh, your head's supposed to be here versus here, your underhook's supposed to be here, pinch your elbow in, make everything tight. All those little tiny details that I've learned along the way that have been coached to me. Now that I can articulate them, I find that my jiu-jitsu has improved dramatically, and in even the most foundational of ways, like the most, I guess, like when you talk about like jiu-jitsu advanced techniques versus primitive techniques, not that the primitive ones are less useful, but like those are the ones that are going to like win you the match most of the time. So like, I guess for lack of a better explanation, it's just, I think that, yeah, like teaching definitely has a positive impact on my jujitsu in the sense that because I can now articulate things a little bit better, my own inner voice speaks to me sometimes when I'm doing a move. I'm like, okay, he's reacting this way. I need to start attacking this versus that. You know what I mean? Or, you just keep hearing the same explanation from an instructional in the middle of your match. You're like, or something you just learned the other day. I don't know. I just have like a weird inner voice that plays in my head while I'm competing.
How much of your reaction is just muscle memory and your body just taking over and your brain, going on almost like an autopilot versus, okay, I need to coach myself to do this, to change my body, change my position.
Yeah. So, for me, in no-gi jiu-jitsu, it's very much like an art form in terms of, oh, this happened. This is a spur of the moment scramble. And you're going to see that in one of the clips kind of, but it's from things that I've watched and learned and that I've wanted to drill and that I've drilled and like have internalized. So it's not like that scramble is a matter of just random creativity. Sometimes the way it goes down is, but for the most part, a lot of it has to do with spur of the moment scramble. Like this is just how my body felt like reacting because I saw the opportunity. I saw the kill shot, you know what I mean? And then back that up with also a lot of it in terms of the gi has to be methodical. Every single movement's methodical. So a lot of it isn't spur of the moment, like the way your body just reacts. A lot of it is, I'm going to secure this grip, then I'm going to secure this grip, and then I'm going to try this sweep. His reaction is going to determine whether or not I keep trying this or I switch to a different grip. It's like rock climbing with the gi, you know? Every movement, every grip, every switch of your body, your hips, your everything is intentional. In no-gi, it's the same way, but because of the lack of grips and the fact that everything's very slick in no-gi, there's a lot more creativity and high flyer moves and flashy things that happen because of the like just who you are as a person. Some people play restricted, calm, cool, collected. Some people play to impress others with highlight. Some people go out there literally to have match of the year. They don't care if they win. They don't care if they lose. They're just going to go out and it's going to be a dogfight, you know? And so sometimes it's a little bit of creativity and just spur of the moment, but I would say like it's 50-50 because I compete in both gi and no gi. And sometimes I feel like my body is just reacting because I constantly do these competition positional sparring rounds with world-class guys. And you just take advantage of that time that you get to train. Those reactions, those are important to have. So, it's fun when you meet somebody in competition who has a really good level of reaction themselves, because then you find yourself in just a chess battle and you win or lose, you know, it was a good match. So sometimes that happens too, but yeah.
Nice. So, this is probably a question I already know the answer to, but, what do you prefer, gi or no gi? What's your favorite to train in?
To train in
or to compete in?
To compete is definitely, it used to be gi, but now it's no gi. I really feel like I've started to flourish and come into my own with no gi game. And I think it's just because I'm still young and have some athleticism and I don't move gingerly or anything like that. I have some pretty good mobility other than some like injuries that happen from here to there, bumps and bruises and stuff. No gi is so much more fun, I think, to compete in because it's kind of more brutal. Then again, the gi can be that way too. But in the gi, I love it because it's a more intricate art. It's very, I don't know how to describe, it's very suave. I don't know. It's a gentleman's sport in the gi kind of. Yeah. It's very brutal still.
And I think you can see that in even the different, what do we call them? Institutions that put on these tournaments, right?
Yeah. Promotion.
Where you have like IBJJF, it's very prestigious, I guess. And it's, you know, it's I guess traditional in many ways.
Yeah.
And then you have ADCC and it's like it can be very flashy. And
I agree. ADCC, they don't even call it a jiu-jitsu tournament. It's submission grappling because it really is. Like, I mean, there are guys that come straight out of collegiate wrestling programs who are like, I'm going to go see if I can't win an ADCC Open or a trials. Just let me go do this. I think my wrestling I can outscore opponents and not give up leg locks or silly arm bars, you know? Whereas like jiu-jitsu guys are going to play their game. Yeah. So catch wrestlers, sambo, it's all there. Judo. I mean, that's where like, I think mixed martial arts is, and that's where like early UFC was weird, was like people were like, my art is better than your art. When really in reality, you want to blend everything because every situation has its own unique circumstance that requires you to understand the foot sweep's going to be more proper than me trying to just straight up hip toss you, or a simple trip. You know, there's just different things that require you to be able to mix all of the arts together, stand up, on the ground. It's all important. So, but yeah, IBJJF, definitely more of a traditional. They have the monopoly on the gi in terms of competition. When it comes to money, AJP is one of these like promotions that it's global, but the big tournaments happen usually overseas in Europe or in the Middle East, where you'll win a lot of money competing in the gi. But there's not a lot of money competing in the gi. So where you win most of your money is in like no gi super fights at like big cash prize tournaments where it's like you fight one person that night, usually win a little cash prize, little purse, fight purse, or you. For the Olympics of jiu-jitsu and submission grappling altogether, no-gi wise, would be ADCC. But the controversy behind ADCC is that it's not tested. So there's a lot of performance enhancing drugs or PEDs that are used within that promotion. Whereas with IBJJF, they're testing black belts. They say they're testing black belts. They say they test all belts, but a blue belt that wins pans or a blue belt that wins worlds is not going to be tested when they get off the podium. So, and that's it nullifies everything after the fact, because if you test people after, they already won. So,
right. I guess they strip the belt or strip the medal.
They strip the title. And one of my like favorite competitors of all time that I've like been watching since I started, his name's Mika Galvao. Still a huge fan of his. He tested positive for something after he won IBJJF Black Belt Worlds, and he was the youngest champion. They had to strip him of that title, and they gave it to the kid that got second.
Yeah.
So,
it's sad for everybody. It's even sad for the guy who originally got second because maybe
he feels snuffed, or he feels like this is a consolation prize. You're just, I already lost. So, that's how I would feel.
That's how I'd feel too. I'm like,
there's no honor.
Yeah. Well, when competing and you know that you're going to be tested, you're not supposed to be cycling anything. But if you are competing ADCC and you're only a submission grappler for ADCC, then by all means, if it's not in the rule set, if you want to cycle different performance enhancing drugs, you just should do so safely. But I don't use anything. So, and that's something that like my coach and we pride ourselves on. Other than like pre-workout that I take or post-workout protein shakes, every now and again, peptide use like BPC 157 for like injuries. But other than that, I don't take anything that enhances my performance to the level of like increasing my hormone output or secretion more. So it's just one of those things where I understand why people do it. I understand why people don't do it. I understand how people say it compromises the integrity of the sport, whereas I also think that it's really fun to watch super juiced guys go up against each other. So
and
they're gladiators.
To be fair, a lot of those guys are openly telling you what they're taking.
That's true.
So if the rules are, hey, you can take it, then
why not?
They should have categories for each drug.
They should.
Like if you're taking this drug, you're in this category.
Here's your cocktail.
Here's the cocktail.
Yeah.
Cocktail guys.
I remember like they used to in like Pride, early days of Pride, when guys would sign contracts in bold English, it would always say, "We do not test for steroids," just because they wanted guys to look like Hulk Hogan, when they do.
Oh man, the thing is when you have like when you have your big hitters in jiu-jitsu come out and like they're just jacked, and they're high level. Yeah, it's super entertaining. It is, like you said, it is like watching gladiators go to battle. Yeah. These guys are as close to you can get as superhumans in the sport.
Some would argue that it has almost nothing to do with that, and almost more to do with also the health and safety of the athletes, because for them to put on a great show, for them to continue to develop their skills, a lot of dudes train more than twice a day, multiple times a week. And so your body deteriorates if without the right ample amount of rest and recovery. So that's why a lot of these guys actually cycle this stuff in the first place, is because they popped their knee the other day because they just haven't taken a break.
Yep.
You know? And so I see that part of it too being a factor that's really important.
Oh, for sure.
To at least acknowledge.
It aids in recovery pretty massively, the stuff that they take. It helps them keep from going, getting injured to begin with.
Re-injured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, me, an average jiu-jitsu player, white belt, even sometimes I'm training 6-7 times a week just because I love it and trying to compete as well. I'll do like a 3-day on Thursday. I get the end of comm class. I go to bed. I literally woke up in the middle of the night last night, like in pain. I'm fine now. Like
achy.
I'm like just super achy. Like my body hurt. And these guys are doing like that every single day.
I used
to a higher degree.
I used to think it was insane. And then I started to realize, and this is a weird like way that your body responds to pain and in general, but I found that I would actually be like, my best pain reliever was continuing to train. It's like the moment you take a break and actually breathe, everything starts flooding in. But if you wake up the next day and you're kind of sore and achy, but you jog a little bit, you warm up on the assault bike, and then you stretch for like 10 minutes if you can, then the pain kind of goes away because you're like, your adrenaline starts pumping because you're like ready to go. I got to go against Jet Thompson at his house and get annihilated every day. So,
well, they say movement is medicine. I mean, back when we were growing up, if someone tore their ACL, it would take like a year to recover. Yeah. Well, now it's like they're better within weeks because they want you to get on. They want you to bear weight on that as soon as you can. They want you to get that blood flow to your body. So, I think we grew up with like the RICE protocol, right? Rest, ice,
that's
compression.
Still a protocol.
It still is, but it's actually been debunked to be effective. Yeah, no, it's absolutely been debunked.
Rest to a degree because
well, you always got to rest.
Yeah, you're gonna get swelling in your recovery, but like for instance, after the Houston Open, my knee, I didn't feel it pop. I didn't hear a pop. It's sore and stiff, man, and swollen, and I don't know what happened.
Is it still swollen?
A little bit, but that's because I'm doing knees over toes exercises at home to like continue to strengthen. Because I remember when I had surgery on my right knee, I had a partial meniscectomy, lateral meniscus was torn, and my knee would lock up. So for background information there.
Was that as a white belt or as a...
No, so like the first time it ever happened, I was wrestling in high school.
Oh, okay.
And we were doing like down position, top position, startups, like sparring. And I stood up and slid like to turn around and face my opponent, and my knee, I was just like, it was locked, and then it clunked really loud, and I yelped because I didn't know what happened. Yeah. And my coach was like, something's just catching in there. That was kind of like the protocol back in the day was, you're good, man.
Yeah, medical science. I would say we grew up in the last era of high schoolers who didn't have like professional sports science people like aiding them in
your coaches are telling you you're good, you'll be fine, throw some dirt on it, versus like, hey, we should go get an MRI, we know a guy who can do it for pretty cheap since you're a high schooler, plays for the team.
Dude, some of the equipment they have at their disposal at these just days. High schools, it's insane. Which the shoes are better, everything's better. Like literally, like the shoes we had were so crappy.
Yeah, the information I would say too, because like you say about shoes, you didn't know, you wanted something that was cushiony, but sometimes it's better to have like a really flat shoe when you're working on certain things. There's just the access to information is different, I guess, too, these days. But
yeah, so back to your knee,
I have no idea what happened to the left knee though. So I drove down by myself to Houston. It was already stiff and sore, so I'm sure it's just because I've been overusing it and working out and not resting. And then you go do a competition, adrenaline's pumping, flowing. Sometimes things just happen. You don't know. You can't feel it. And so now, 2 days after competition, or no, not 2 days after, but like the day after that day that I finished competing on Sunday, which was the last day of competition for me, I remember driving back, and it was hard to get out of the car to pump gas.
Oh my.
So I think it's because I just wasn't resting. All the adrenaline, it, dissipates from the body. And so all those pain signals start to actually flood. And so it just is what it is, I think. And I have a competition coming up in OKC. So I'm really hoping that, resting it, but also working it out because I'm not training. I think training and doing the jiu-jitsu and doing things like De La Hiva and eating ankle locks sometimes or fighting heel hooks sometimes toe holds can damage your knees and your ankles and your toes, your feet bones even. So I think not training for a couple weeks probably be good.
Yeah.
But in the sense of what am I doing at home to stay active is PT essentially, things that I did to recover for my right knee, which if you guys don't know, I hope that you guys don't have to deal with this, but knee injuries are very annoying because it's a joint. It's not like a muscle or a tendon sometimes that you can heal relatively quickly with the right amount of working out and resting, but and sleep and things like that. But like ligamentous or ligamentous injuries, things that involve the ligaments, those are like really weird, odd injuries that just take an abnormal amount of time to heal. So if your knee is catching and locking though, on the outside, probably need to have an MRI because probably you have some damage in there that
Pretty
needs
damaged.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the right knee was damaged for years and just progressively got worse as I continued to do jiu-jitsu. And then 90 days after that surgery, I was back to 100%. But now the left knee is starting to see signs of wear and tear in the same general vicinity.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you don't have to have surgery or do anything.
The doctor
pretty
said
extensive.
I have something called discoid meniscus, which you could Google that. It's really weird. It's just an abnormal amount of meniscus tissue. So I have a abnormally large meniscus tissue based off just my genetics for some reason. So it's called a lateral discoid meniscus. And sometimes the doctors think that because of that, that's why it tears. I just have too much tissue in there.
So do you think it's torn right now or
Probably mild.
And then does that mean you have to have surgery or are you going to?
It's not locking yet. So I'm just going to keep doing knees over toes exercises and I'll do my warm-ups right. And then, if it's God's will that my knee's torn, then I already know that having surgery is like investing in, it's like putting extra new tune-up parts in like a car.
Sure.
Because this is my career. I don't see surgeries as like a bad thing, especially if the recovery is only 90 days to be back to 100%. And like really 2 weeks after my surgery, I was rolling light again. So
Yeah.
You think there's foods that you can eat to help that?
Lots of protein. The research that I know thus far is like you should try your best before you start taking like things like, so if you're going to cycle BPC, for instance, you want your body to have an inflammation response. So don't take things like ibuprofen at first because you want your body to start that healing process before you start taking anti-inflammatories to deal with swelling. It's something that I recommend people do. Like, don't start flooding your bodies with the anti-inflammatories soon after an injury because you think it's going to help the pain go away, but really you're causing more pain. I feel like as the swelling continues to increase, you're fighting it away. You need to let it kind of overwhelm you first for a little bit and then let your body deal with it and then start regimenting different things for anti-inflammatories. But as far as diet goes, high protein, like think ketogenic. You don't want to eat like simple sugars like a donut. I love donuts. Don't eat them when you're hurt. Get enough sleep and then like do your best if you're going to eat carbs to make them complex. So
yeah, sleep is a huge part of recovery that I found. And I've been studying a lot. Oh,
It's
not
hard to
been
get
studying
it.
On sleep. I've been watching the Huberman Lab podcast on sleep. He's got like a series out and it's been super informative. It's the protocols he comes up with just for sleeping. He brings in experts. So I've been studying sleep a lot because I feel like my sleep has been not super great, but trying to implement some protocols and things like that.
I'll tell you, having a child and like being a dad or being a mother is the number one way to get rid of sleep for a little bit. It's like for 8 weeks straight, I feel like I didn't sleep at all.
Oh, I'm sure.
Now it's a little better because she sleeps mostly through the night. But yeah, it was those first, I don't know. That was the hardest thing that I dealt with as being a new dad, which everybody deals with something different or has their own little like thing that you feel like is really tough to adapt to. For me, it was the sleep because it really messed with jiu-jitsu and recovery. I just woke up sore. I woke up tired, lethargic. Getting to class was actually more of a chore. This is my passion. I never complain about doing practice. Like I drive with my smile to my face to competition practice, which if you've never done a competition practice with us at the Forge, it's it's pretty intense sometimes, and we try to push ourselves and have really like tough rounds and at a competition pace with competition level aggression. So it can like really wear down your body. And I never ever loathe that experience. So it is really, it sometimes can be disheartening if you're injured and you going and you can't get the sleep because you're like, here I go again.
Right. 100%.
But yeah, it's good stuff.
So let's talk about, let's look at some of these videos, which by the way, if you're just listening to this podcast, you definitely need to hop on YouTube or Spotify and check it out because we are going to watch some videos of Ethan's matches and he's going to give us some commentary on it. So you want to start with this one right here?
Sure. So this tournament, I was a white belt. This is IBJJF OKC. This is the tournament that it was my last white belt tournament. I got promoted on the podium after this tournament. My opponent, when we initially get going, he pulls guard. I just kind of break down the whole match as we go along. But at the time that I was learning jiu-jitsu and doing what I was doing, a lot of what I was studying was Tynan Dalpra. If you don't know who he is, he's an art of jiu-jitsu black belt. And so a lot of his techniques were things that I was using to either pass the guard or play guard. And so I went to go do a knee weave pass, but when I felt my opponent not have like a pant grip on me, I jumped over to my right side to do a knee cut. And now that I have an underhook, I backstep to try and get to 411 just to try and get the underhook a little bit. But that was the easiest guard pass I ever hit because I went for a cross pant grip and he just wasn't expecting it, so I just drug his leg by. So I got 3 points for that to side control. And then because I put a knee on his belly with my foot posted out, it's called knee on belly, I got 2 points for that. So I'm up 5-0 at this point. And this is where things really start to go downhill for him. I'm able to put a lot of chest-to-chest pressure on him, knee on belly again. When I do jiu-jitsu, a lot of what Steve is telling me to do isn't let's do this, let's do that now. It's a lot of, hey, let's gas this guy out here. He made the mistake of letting you get to this really strong position, so let's wear him down before we progress the position further. So a lot of what I do is, and these are things that I've also learned from just doing rounds with monsters at our own gym, is just make them feel your weight. So he gets tired of that enough, and when I gave him enough space, he stood up, and when he stood up, he gave me an opportunity to pull close guard off of a takedown attempt that he did, which is like, for me, it's my A game. So this was his worst mistake because now he's standing up. I have cross sleeve control with my right hand. So because his stance is very wide, I'm able to underhook his leg. And then from here, collar control. So now his posture is going to be broken down a little bit. Shoot a triangle. Now he's in desperation mode because he's like, I don't want to get subbed. I'm not putting on any pressure with it because I don't have the right angle, but I still have that cross sleeve control. So what do? Hit an omoplata sweep, come up for crab ride. He guards out to side control here, and then I hit a flying armbar on the edge and get the tap. So what's really cool about that whole sequence right there is I went from the pass with the cross pant grip control and sleeve control. I hit an armbar that was literally taught to me the weekend before this tournament.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Professor Tyler Murrah at Scrap City. He's a real stud. He showed that move, and it, like, I don't know, really stuck with me. I love arm bars.
Yeah.
Personally. That's like a whole other thing. Like, I don't know why, but I've always been attracted to the arm bar. It's just people have to put their hands on you to pass your guard. And so it's the first weapon you can use against them is like, hey, they got to put their hands on you. Use their grips against them. So I've always been intrigued and attracted to that move. But I think one of the things that progressed my game really fast was like once I started studying instructionals and spending the hour and a half a day studying things like that, I bought the Hoffa Mendez instructional on the armbar masterclass that he has on AOJ Plus. And if you guys don't know who Hoffa Mendez is or Guy Mendez, those dudes, they are very high level, both no gi and gi.
Yeah.
So their kids program is the best in the world.
Oh, cool.
Bar none, for sure. Has to be.
So, how many years have you been doing jiu-jitsu during that time?
Good. So let me think. That would have been February of 2022. So I would have been doing it for a year and 3 or 4 months.
Okay, wow.
So I got my blue belt after 14, 15 months of training. And
That's pretty
competing.
epic.
Yeah.
That's
But I
definitely
started
not normal.
competing 3 months after starting training.
Wow.
So like,
How were those? How were those early competitions?
well, like my first competition, I got silver, lost to a fellow teammate that I had never met because he was a morning class guy.
Okay. Oh, you said Garrett, right?
Garrett, yeah. I knew he was going to be tough. I saw his ears and I was like, this kid's been training forever.
He
Turned out
grew up wrestling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, wrestling with his dad all the time. His dad was a collegiate level wrestler, I believe.
Gotcha.
So he was destined for greatness. But yeah, so 14 months. Then my second competition, I got beat out in the first round. So you imagine the contrast. You go from like you don't expect. My goal for my first comp was don't get subbed, and then I got a silver medal. So now I'm like, I'm gonna win this. You know, I feel good. I've been training for another like 90 days. Here's time for my second competition, and I get beat in the first round. I just got overwhelmed, and my coach wasn't there. Didn't know what I should do from certain positions that I was stuck in. So that's gonna happen. But then my third competition was my first gold medal performance. It was an AGF tournament in Oklahoma City. And then from there, which that leads us into this clip right here, I think would be a good one to go into.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was my first ever no-gi competition. This clip is a little long, might be like 4-ish minutes, because white belt matches at the time were 5. But this kid, I was so dead tired, okay? I had all of my matches, all of my opponents showed up. This kid that I'm going against in the finals, his quarterfinal match opponent got DQ'd, and then his semifinals match opponent had to pull out. So he had 2 matches just coasting to the finals.
He's pretty fresh.
He's very fresh. And he's also just a tenacious guy. You can see his energy versus my energy. I'm just worn down because I've had absolute wars that I had to get to the final.
How many matches have you done already?
This was my 5th. So I had
And you
4.
do gi as well?
I was going to do the gi.
Okay.
But after this, not just this match, but after this bracket, my neck was hurting so bad that I was like, I'm not doing it. in the
Gotcha.
gi.
All right, so
But
you're pretty worn out at this point.
I'm worn out. I'm down 2-0, and this kid is coming at me like, I don't even know, a hummingbird on a feeder. He's going nuts. But Coach Steve, he was in my corner. He kept me calm. I knew the score was going to get out of hand because of how tired I was. And I kept trying to hit sweeps, but look at that. You kind of rewind that clip just a tad bit. You can see that I was about to get out to the side on him. Yeah, watch. I'm out on the side. And as I recenter up, I'm trying to climb to his back here, okay? But watch. When I swivel out to his left, or to his right, my left, he swings back and just elbows me. And the referee says nothing. Like right here. Boom.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. So
That's not good.
Yeah, like
He didn't mean to elbow you. He just meant to.
he was just spazzy, you know, and that's the thing. See, I keep climbing to his back, but eventually he just, like, dude, he just is so scrambly, and I'm so worn out. It's literally taking everything I have in the tank. I don't know what this is, but they gave him 4 points for back control there when he didn't have any hooks in, so that was just either a mishap on the referee or
Well, he missed the elbow too. So.
he gave him another 4 for the mount there. So look how the score just is.
Yeah, what is it, 10-0 right now?
Yeah, it's out of hand. Like, now he's grapevining me, see? Look at him grapevining me. He's weaved his legs inside mine. From the mount, this is the worst position to be in because you don't know what you're going to do to get out sometimes. So thank God that he gave me the strength in this situation. I was doing all those Murphs all the time that this part of the match was just completely mental.
Yeah.
I knew that it was getting away from me, and I still kept fighting. So, boom, away from the mount and in the close guard. I know I'm down 10-0. I'm trying not to waste time, but I'm also, like, so tired. You could tell. Look at him slamming me, going nuts. The referee warned him after that because he went crazy. But look, Kimura, I had a Kimura attempt here that was really tight, and he was able to, avoid the danger by getting his back to the ground because now I can't crank it. And now I have a triangle, but he's so wiry that I didn't get the angle that I needed to finish this. I should have been able to finish the armbar here, and maybe now with how I can acknowledge positions a little quicker, I wouldn't have, had that done. But like what I mean by had that done was I would have been able to actually finish the triangle or the armbar there. Instead, he's able to get out. But I scored 6 points. So for me, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm trying to finish this move, but he's doing a really good job again of fighting, and boom, he passes. So now the match is again out of my clutches, so to speak. I got down 3 points again. Right here's a really neat escape, actually, from side control that I learned from Professor Austin. If you're a dog, you can use it when you're tired, but you can just tell, look at me.
Yeah, you look absolutely exhausted.
1 minute and 20 seconds left. It's all I can do to win. He shoots in on a really sloppy single leg and gives me like crucifix, essentially. Yep. So on his far arm, I have a Kimura grip, and then on his near arm, I have it hooked with my legs. He tries to fireman's carry me over, which eventually he succeeds in getting me down to my hip. So he scores another 2 points for the takedown, believe it or not. But because I still have this overwrapped, I know that I can finish the Kimura. I said to myself, this is my last ditch effort. This is the last thing I have. Either that or I'm going to get second this tournament. And voila, I start to hip out. I get it. And Coach Steve is telling me to break his arm at this point because he didn't tap to the last one. And right there's the tap.
There's the tap.
With 37 seconds left, I was down several points. You can still win. So
I love it.
I love that clip just because that is probably like one of the greatest learning moments in all of my jiu-jitsu, just because it was the first time my back was up against the wall in competition and I actually found a way out and won. That doesn't happen a lot. A lot of times you get beat in those positions because sometimes you give up something really valuable in like a really weak position for you, strong position for the other guy, and that guy's good enough to make you pay. This kid, no disrespect or anything intended to him at all, but he wasn't hunting the finish. It was like he had wrestler energy. He was just going to dog me down until he beat me on points. So because I knew he couldn't sub me, I always had that light at the end of the tunnel. It was like, it was one of those tournaments where I really didn't know how I won, but I won. And there's a picture of me right after I got my hand raised. It's not in that clip, I don't think.
We can add it. We'll add it later.
But I'm throwing up in the trash can that's off, like literally like behind.
Oh my gosh,
the score table. Yeah.
So that was your goal. That you got gold in that one. That was it.
That was my first no-gi division that I ever competed in because up until that point I was gi only, training gi only, competing gi only. So that was my first time competing no-gi, and I got lucky and was able to win. But I mean, it took everything I had. I literally threw up everywhere. And I couldn't compete later that day because my neck hurt super bad, and I don't know why or what happened.
Right.
But
fair enough.
I guess the next clip we can talk about is this one right here. So this is my buddy Jet Thompson.
Okay.
Right now he's 17, but in this clip I think he was 16, maybe 15. Okay. This is a screen recording of him competing in a B team open tournament for purple belts that weighed 170 pounds. So if you watch it over and over again here, he hits an arm bar from his opponent. So we'll watch it one more time. His opponent has a collar tie, and he uses his opponent's collar tie that's weak, and he's not using it. He uses it to attack the arm, okay? So I saw this clip, and I was like, I'm going to do this arm bar because I'm an arm bar guy, okay? I have to try this. So if you click on this clip now, this is me, okay? This is the fastest match I've ever had. 7 seconds.
Oof. That's awesome.
Now, we didn't roll through like crazy purple belts, but this was a white belt. You're not allowed to jump submissions. So what's cool about this attempt is it looks like a guard pull. But because he was stubborn with his collar tie, I was able to use it and weaponize it against him. So when somebody grabs your neck and tries to collar tie with you, if they're not using it to snap your posture down, they're just giving you an arm to control.
Yeah.
So I grab elbow control, tricep control, whatever you want to call it. And then I jump my far leg, my right leg across his hip and his waistline. The left leg swings over his head. And from there, I put all the crank into it as I
love
can.
it. What, are you blue belt at this point? This is
Nope.
white belt.
This was the second to last tournament I had as a white belt.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's sick, dude. That's awesome. And so you train with Jet pretty often.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know Jet Thompson, he's a kid. He's been training jiu-jitsu, I think, since he was like 7 or 8 years old. He has about as much mat experience as any black belt. It's just because of how old he is, he can't have his black belt technically. It's like a rule. You can't have your black belt until you're 18. So he actually was like a purple belt for 1 year just so he could do, I think, Pan's Kids again and actually have a juvenile one opponent because it's so rare for there to be a purple belt at the age of 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And so
Now, you can be a purple belt at 15 or 16?
yeah, but you're not going to find many competitions.
Right.
You can do ADCC, but IBJJF, you're not allowed to compete with adults until you're 18.
Okay.
So they have a juvenile 1 for 16-year-olds, and they have juvenile 2, I believe, for 17-year-olds.
And he's 17 now.
But there's no brown belt that's 17 that
Yeah.
he can go against.
He's a rare person.
So, like I said, he is a rare person. He was actually ranked top 5 in ADCC US Open, or not just US Open, but the ADCC Open tournaments that they started this year. He was ranked top 5, and he was actually seeded to do really well at trials. But like I had a debacle at Pans, I lost and got bounced out in the first round. Me and him had been we trained for like 4 months, about 120 day, not really like a dedicated camp to gi or no gi specifically, but just all the training and mat time that we had put in together, all the strength and conditioning we had done together. We really expected to go further, you know? And so it was really sad when Jet lost in the first round of trials, because if you lose in the first day, you don't get to go on and try for third. So he didn't even have a shot at third. Whereas if you lose the second day at trials, you can at least try to fight your way to third. So it was devastating. The same thing happened to me essentially with this clip.
This
is going to be a tough one to watch, but this is really, I mean, I've already watched it a dozen times. This is me at Pans, which I'm from Oklahoma, so I drove all the way to Florida with my wife and my daughter. And right off the bat, I don't know. I just knew that this kid was going to be tough with how long his legs were. I had a really good guard pass attempt right there, and now I'm in like a stack pass position where I go for a double underhook stack pass, but watch. He's so long-legged. He was like 6'2" or 3", that he can weave his legs around my arms and come back inside. So the referee, I think, stopped us there to like fix my gi. And now I'm in his collar sleeve game, and his legs are so long. Look at him. He's like underneath me with the De La Hiva hook. He just keeps putting me over, and now he's in a triangle. Like, I know if I keep my head low here, he can't triangle me. I'm begging him by offering him that low posture with my head for him to go to the omoplata, but he won't chain it to it because he knows what he wants. He wants to hit like an armbar triangle situation. So look at this collar sleeve game that he's playing. He taught me a valuable lesson, and that's get to your guard first at lightweight. Right there, Look at this armbar, omoplata, kimura, and it was the back and forth of my elbow. It popped once. I'm tapping right here, and the ref doesn't see it until then. So it was like he was able to crank and add a lot more pressure for about another half second. My arm popped.
Oh, man.
And you see it's only a minute and like 15 seconds into the match. And that's never happened to me before.
Right.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of words that can describe how I felt. I actually wanted to cry, but I was so devastated that I felt like emotionless.
Right.
It was weird. It was a weird feeling. Coach Steve's clapping for me, maybe also clapping for my opponent. I shake his hand, try to find his coach. His coach is already gone. And I just walk away. And that right there is probably the beginning of my villain arc in a sense now.
Right.
That kid was really tough. Blue belt from Canada, Ottawa. He's French Canadian.
Oh,
He was
man.
speaking like French Canadian. I was just like, I've lost to 2 Canadians. It's kind of a joke now. I've lost to Canadians in like 2 of the so Pans I lost to a Canadian, and then the tournament I did before Pans was ADCC Austin Open.
Okay.
And I lost to another Canadian in the round of 8 in a 36-man bracket. So it was really good. But so this kind of like comes circle back to like this last competition that I did. This was this is just a clip from the Houston Open in Nogi. It was my first match.
Before we jump into that, I'm gonna dive into your mindset. Like, what was your mindset after that? Like immediately after, and then like days after, and then like before you did this next competition. Like, where were you at in your head? Like,
so before the tournament, I was like 5 matches to gold.
Yeah,
I'm not. I've done tournaments where I can win 5 matches. I know my cardio's there. I can do it. I didn't even get the shot, you know? And IBJJF tournaments are single elimination, so I can't even fight for third. And as hard as I had trained for any tournament in my entire career, anything that I've done in jiu-jitsu, I was just destroyed. I mean, but I knew that that's a part of it. So I had some really wise, savvy competitors that are black belts at our gym, you know, reach out to me and say, dude, that's probably not going to be the last time you fly halfway across the country and get beat in the first round. But this is the path now. So on to the next. Because like I didn't want to do Worlds after that, because Worlds is in Long Beach. That's another 24-hour trip across the country. And my confidence is superbly low at this point. I'm broke. Like I was just broken down, especially because I made like a 13-pound weight cut to make weight. Like that tournament, I was way overweight from just eating like crap on the way over there and stuff like that. So I felt like I put a lot into the tournament, just a lot of emotional investment for it to end up like that. Yeah. But I think it was an obstacle that the Lord put before me to help me fix my mindset when it comes to tournaments in general. You know, before I was like, this is X amount of matches to gold, because I was so used to winning.
Yeah.
That I've never expected to get bounced out in the first round. So he humbled me, brought me to my knees to an extent. And it wasn't like something that I think it was like also a test. Like, is this what you want? Because I want this to be my career. I want to win world titles at black belt. That's what I train for. I don't care if I win Pans as a blue belt. In fact, I probably needed that loss because I was like, I hadn't really lost a bunch of tournaments and I hadn't competed much at blue belt, but I've been looking good. So that was like a really good just experience for me to have, I think, for my psychological development in the sport and the mental attitude you're supposed to have. I don't think I acted disrespectfully after the match. I would have shook his coach's hand. You know, I tried to do all the right things. Like, you're supposed to lose with humility and grace just as much as you're supposed to do the same when you win.
Yeah.
But how it changed my mindset was now I don't even look at my divisions anymore. I used to look and see, okay, there's 50 guys. That's like I have this many matches to gold. Now I check it the day before. I see how many guys I have. And then I see who I have in my bracket, and I say, the next match is the most important match. I don't care about how many it's going to take me to get there, because I know by the time I get there, that guy is going to be just as tired as me.
Yeah.
And if he's not, I'm still dangerous, because here I am doing 120-pound farmers carries with my boy Jet, and we're doing assault bike workouts, and we're just trying to annihilate ourselves on the daily just so we know that we will never be tired again in a match, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, if it comes down to overtime, who wants it more? I'm going to win, because everybody in this sport gets tired. You have to be dangerous when you're tired. You have to have the confidence that you can win when you're tired, because everybody gets tired. It's a war of attrition in this sport. So who wants it worse? You know, who wants it more? And so my mindset essentially shifted from, okay, how many matches do I need to get this over with? To, because I used to get really nervous before competitions, and I still somewhat do. And I think because there was a lot riding on it, a lot of financial investment to get all the way over to Florida to get beat, I started to learn now it's like, it's not about that. That mat time was that was valuable experience, because now because like me and coach, we watched the rest of my division. Did you know that 95% of those who won their matches at the rest of that tournament in my division, the lightweight category in the gi, got to their guard first. So they pooled, and it was a quick pool. Like it wasn't a stand up and wrestle for a second and then pool. It was a slap bump, get a grip and slide. So we started to implement some data analysis into it essentially.
Love
and we
it.
watched the rest of the division and saw that everybody that won all pulled guard. And not only did they pull guard, but they pulled guard fast and they got there first. So now, like losing that way, it sucked, but we've learned to implement now. I'm going to play. So it's not jump close guard, because jumping close guard takes too long because you got to get grips. And then by then he's already underneath you. Now it's slap bump, stutter, and you time your grip just right so you can get down first. And now it's like we have a strategy. And now I'm going to play collar sleeve now, because collar sleeve's that good against me, who I thought I was a pretty good guard passer. I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying that I'm the best in the world, but I know how to pass collar sleeve guard, and I couldn't deal with this kid's collar sleeve guard. So I knew that if there were going to be some kids that's guards are so good that I couldn't deal with it and it overwhelms me, I need to get to mine first, because I know if that kid was forced to pass my guard, he'd have been in a lot of trouble because he's a guard player.
Right.
So now I know if I'm good at guard passing and I hit a sweep, maybe I'll have a chance to score 5. But if I get into somebody's guard who's really good and they trap me, maybe I lose.
This explains the drill that we did when Professor Steve did.
So
did comp class.
it was because I lost, but we also took lessons from the loss and are now implementing them into the strategy and how you play. And some people say it's a sin to pull guard like that, but it's what you have to do. It's the meta.
Yeah.
It's what's being done at my division. It's like when you get heavier and heavier and heavier in weight, guys are less inclined to pull guard and are more going to stand up and you work judo takedowns, wrestling takedowns, etc. But when you look at lighter divisions, the guy who plays top is always at an inherent disadvantage with the way the rule set works.
Yeah.
And the rule set favors the guard player.
And I think pulling guard is different in the gi than in no gi, right? Typically when someone's pulling guard no gi, they're just sitting down and trying to do leg stuff and everything. As you can see in that video, pulling guard in the gi is extremely aggressive.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's completely different mindset.
I was really like impressed watching his film. Like I broke down his game. He had great transitions from single leg X guard to collar sleeve. He looked like the Mendez bros. I mean, his coaches, he was a well-coached kid. And I give him all the kudos. He was a quarter finalist. He lost in the quarterfinals, so he was one match away from podiuming my opponent.
Yeah.
I mean, I was rooting for him.
Yeah,
After he
fair
beats
enough.
you, you want them to go pretty far because you're like, okay, how much better is he than me?
Sure.
And he was a quarter finalist, and he lost to a kid that, when I went to Kansas City and done an open tournament for IBJJF, that kid who beat him and got bronze, he won Kansas City. So, it's just my mindset. I learned that, okay, from a loss, you can learn a lot. It's not all hope is lost. Now, is it hard to go back and watch that footage? 100%. I hate doing it, but that's where you learn the most is like, man, I lost in 1 minute and 15 seconds. What can I gain from this video?
Yeah. And as we know now, the narrative does not end there.
Yeah.
So you just got back literally last weekend, right?
Yeah. So
From Houston.
Yep.
And if you're watching this, if they're watching this at a later time, or if this airs at a later date, what date did you just compete at Houston?
let's see.
April.
I think it would have been the 13th and the 14th, or 14th and 15th. It was like the weekend of that. Yeah.
Okay.
It would have been 13th, 14th.
13th, 14th.
Yeah.
So you just competed and coming off a hard loss in Florida. All right. So what's your mindset? I guess you kind of shared your mindset already leading up to that.
I don't look at my divisions anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care about how many men are in there. I know that I have to be the best man of the day, the man in the arena. And so I started, this match is the most important, not how many matches until I'm on the podium. You get ahead of yourself. You start thinking, I'm going to be on the beach in Destin, Florida with some hardware on my neck, bronze, maybe, who knows? I would have been happy with any podium performance at my first pans.
Yeah.
But you get beat sometimes in the first round. And I think my coaches and training partners who are like experienced who have been there before, they're like, it's a part of it. It's not. They were like, I've flown halfway across the country and lost too. Now we have something in common. No,
Yeah.
it's like it's a part of it, and
Yeah.
also, it wasn't like it was black belt. That can happen at black belt, and that kind of probably hurts a lot more because you thought maybe this is my year to win a major.
Yeah.
At black belt, and this is blue belt. So these are growing pains. So now I'm like, losses, it's on to the next.
Yep.
So with that mindset going forward, I didn't care how many matches I had. So just to break down the tournament for you, Houston, I had 4 matches to win gold in my gi division. So that just proves that I have the cardio and what it takes to win a major tournament where you're going to have 5 or 6 matches on average. So I felt like I could have won Pans if I was the best man that day. I knew I had the gas tank. But on day 1 was gi. Saturday the 13th, I won all 4 matches with a 50% sub rate. A really great learning lesson in my semifinals match where I was down 1 advantage the whole time, and then 30 seconds left, it's time to go. I found a way to score, and so I won. And in the finals was really cool because I beat, if you guys don't know, Francisco Lowe. He's a really good black belt. I think he trains with Checkmat in Texas somewhere. This dude's a stud, no-gi and in the gi, but he was coaching my opponent in the finals. And so when I was asking where his coach was, I went and shook Francisco Lowe's hand. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Francisco Lowe's just grinning ear to ear at me because I just beat one of his students. So it felt pretty cool. And then day 2, for those that you don't know about IBJJF weigh-ins, I had like another 8 pounds to cut after I had already gained back some weight from replenishing after my gi division. So I had to be like 3 pounds lighter than Saturday just to make weight for no gi. So, and weigh-in for me on day 2 isn't at 9:30 like it was day 1. It's at 2 in the afternoon. So I'm like kind of suffering. And that's where I think religion kind of plays a huge part. If you're used to fasting or anything like that, I think, and that's like something I did growing up, and this kind of tangential, we can get into this a little bit later, but like the Holy Spirit and being guided in sort of a way of like sharing, not necessarily the same level of punishment and suffering that Jesus had when he was being crucified. But I feel like that's where Christians and brothers and sisters alike can kind of relate, and use that to guide them in terms of the strength off the mat when you're getting ready to perform and getting your head right. Because with combat sports, you really kind of feel like you're ready to die because you're going out there, and it's not like you're going to, but like you do get that nervous tension where you're like, you kind of accept whatever's going to happen and you just want to go out and have fun at that point. So I listen to a lot of like bluegrass gospel hymns when I'm competing. But anyway, go ahead and ask any question before.
Yeah.
You
So you just won your gold in the gi, right? How many matches was it again? 3 matches, right?
4
matches.
The gi.
4 for the gi. And okay, I just like to get in people's minds about stuff like that, right? Because you're feeling probably great. Probably feeling like you already like no matter what happens now, like you're like had a successful time in Houston. Okay. So how do you go into your next match with that mindset? Like, how do you stay hungry for that next gold, for that next potential podium finish when you already had an excellent day the day before? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It really has to do with drive because I feel the same way. Like as soon as I make the semifinals and I know I'm guaranteed a bronze medal with IBJJF because they don't make anybody fight for bronze, you kind of feel good because you're like, okay, at least I got some points out of this. So you start to relax a little bit, but that mindset can kind of plague you depending on who you are as a person, because then you're like willy-nilly in your semifinals match. Maybe you lose, but you got a bronze, so you don't care, But like, the thing that motivated me was like, I was the best guy in the gi today. And I think it's harder to win in the gi sometimes because it's just an intricate game and some people just only train gi. So I really felt like I could win double gold. I was like, I just beat the best guy in the gi. So if he's in my division for no gi, I know I can beat him.
Yeah.
So let's do it. So that was what motivated me. You still get nervous, but the confidence is soaring at that point. You feel like if you have the right mindset, you should feel like you're unstoppable, or undeniable is the right word, because with some of the way the refereeing went down on day 2 in my no-gi matches, like in the finals of my no-gi match or my no-gi division, I hit an armbar in like the first minute and a half, but my opponent said he didn't tap, but the ref had said stop. So he stood us up, gave me 2 points, and made me start standing, even though I had side control with an armbar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I had already celebrated. I thought I won. So coach just says, go do it again.
Yeah.
So
go do it again. I love that.
But yeah, so really it's about like wanting it, I think. But my mindset and where it's at is just, I want to go. I spent a lot of money to do the tournament. I want to have as many matches as I possibly can. Yes. Because I get to break down the film. I can learn from it. I can see, hey, did I hit a technique that I've been working on or that I've been watching, which with this next video, man, I could probably break down weeks worth of stuff that I've like learned and been drilling with Jet, especially no-gi wise, but also just stuff that I've been watching on my own time.
Yeah.
Studying.
Let's dive in.
Yeah. So I'm going against a strong kid. He was really strong, from Orande Brothers Jiu-Jitsu. Orande, I wish I was saying his name right. The dude is a cowboy. He walks around with a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. He's a really cool dude, but this is one of his students. So my wrestling has been improving a lot, and right off the bat, I hit a near arm drag to his back. And so I already know I might be in his head a little bit because he knows I can wrestle because I hit a quick arm drag attack. Now I'm 2-on-1, and I try to go for a snap to the foot trip, but he's a good job of circling out. So we just keep hand fighting. He tries an ankle pick. I sprawl. He shoves me, so I shove him back. There's a little, that jacking back and forth stuff is like good, I was adrenaline flowing. I had a good competition class before this tournament, so I was excited. Right here's a good sequence for us to rewind. We should just rewind it like 10 seconds right there because...
Right here?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can start here. So when we start to circle off to the top left corner of the mat, he tries to hit what's called a slide by. So he's trying to get around me really fast and slick. And it was pretty tough, but I was addressing his collar tie right there. So I switched to a 2-on-1 and hit a foot trip. He scrambles. I go double unders. He tries to throw. I go overhook, climb over. I go for an arm bar, but because he's got the right posture, I chained to a triangle. And this was the end for him. Okay. Now I know because I finished, no disrespect, Jet. I finished Jet from triangles before. So I'm like, this kid's not stronger than Jet Thompson. So I can beat this kid now.
Yeah.
So I have him. For a second, I attack the arm bar because he's making it hard for me to finish the triangle by having his arm tucked away because he knows that if I get the arm across my body, I'm going to beat him. But I don't want him to step over my head. If he was smart, he would have stepped over my head here. So what I do is I keep baiting like I'm trying to attack the Kimura or the arm bar until I wait for him to try and stand up, because as soon as he stands up, he's leaving access to his carotid artery. And this is like what's cool about no-gi is you can do this and it's really mean. But what's going to happen is as soon as he postures up, I pull down with my right hand on the back of his head, and then my left hand is punching him in the left part of his throat. So he taps right there. You couldn't really see a lot of the detail, but essentially I have a triangle choke wrapped up.
Yeah.
I'm squeezing the absolute life out of him. But as he stands up, he's trying to posture away from me. I'm pulling down on his head and punching into his carotid. So he just, depending on where my fist was, he probably felt like air was getting cut off and blood flow too. So I felt bad because I didn't let go as soon as he started tapping, because you have to wait until the ref says, stop. Because absolutely. If you let go, he can be like, I didn't tap, So that was like a really cool sequence, because that is a culmination of not only the countless hours I've been studying different Russian Thai videos that I hit, because I countered his wrestling with better wrestling. He tried a really good move and he actually created a really good angle, but because of his ability to chain from different things, I think he was stuck on having the cross lat control, but because I was addressing that arm, I just had my 2-on-1 right away. And because of where his feet were, instantly hit the foot sweep. And then that whole sequence, even though I didn't score a takedown, was the whole sequence that led to the triangle, which is kind of why I love Nogi, because Nogi just continues to go. Right there, I didn't use jiu-jitsu to get him to the ground. That was wrestling and judo. I used a wrestling 2-on-1 control, Russian tie is what they call it, to the foot sweep, which is more of a judo move. It's like blending not only your judo and your wrestling together, but you saw also the scramble out of it was I got to close guard, pummeled to the triangle, hit a punch choke variation.
Yeah. And I think the combination of all that is what is so attractive to a lot of people who are just no-gi guys.
Yeah.
Or girls, right? It's just like you said, it's nonstop. It's continually flowing. It's continually going.
I'm going to share one more clip with you because
Okay.
I posted this on my Instagram, and I think this is going to be valuable to break down if we have time. Just because this kind of like shows how much studying goes in to what I do. So like I study game, study a technique, and then I've been training it for months, this one technique, but this is the first time I've been able to even try it in competition because I've never used the Choi bar.
Okay. So here we go.
Yeah.
So this is what
So
are we about to watch?
So
Exactly.
I actually narrate in this, so we could probably turn the volume up on it.
Okay.
Even.
Or yeah, I'll turn it up
Yeah.
and then I can add it later.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, this is me explaining Hoffa Mendez. He hits a Choi bar entry, which you'll see in the video when it explains. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be sharing with you a legendary move that I learned after studying Hoffa Mendez's game for the past 12 months, his no-gi game. Here at ADCC Worlds a while ago, he hit this Choi bar entry, and then from there back steps to the back take. And I hit this same move at the IBJJF Houston Open. As you can see, when my opponent starts to pass my guard and I hit the Choi bar entry, as soon as I feel him stop posting on my leg, I backstep over his back, and then when he defends the back take, I then start to attack the arm more from the Choi bar that I entered on. And here you can see I hit the finish.
And so, yeah, thanks for watching. So, that's something that I just uploaded to my Instagram, I believe, yesterday. And the coolest insight for jiu-jitsu guys who are sharing technique videos isn't likes or comments or shares, it's saves. Because you know people are saving it to study it later. Or they saw it and they're like, man, if I ever go through my saved videos like I should, I can study this for later. And so I haven't checked it in like a few hours, but it's like 88% of the accounts I've reached are non-followers. I've gained a few followers from it, and like almost 20 people have saved it out of 84 likes or whatever. So like a considerable amount of people are engaging with this in a way that I'm wanting them to do so. So the move in particular is like off of somebody. So if somebody's trying to leg drag you or get past your guard by sweeping the legs by like a Toriano pass, you can use a shoulder crunch or like a sort of control on one arm to be able to allow you to free float your leg over and inside. Like think about going for a belly down arm bar is what you're doing when you do a Choi bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But in what I do in this clip is I'm using it to get to the back like Hoffa Mendez. Okay. I understand that because I have my right foot inserted inside his waistline, that all I need to do to get to the back is backstep my leg. So you can see my right leg inserts, and then my left leg high steps over his back. Okay? This is a dilemma you can play with depending on like what situation you end up in. But because he goes to immediately defend the back take, because he knows how down on points he is, he gives me the opportunity to continue to tack the arm that I was in on already.
Yeah.
And, so,
and this is the video where you that arm bar right there is the photo.
So that's the photo where I won.
So sick.
But what's funny is this was the same match that I armbarred him earlier, and they told me to stop and then stood us up.
Yeah.
So I did armbar him again.
That's epic.
Yeah.
So is the photo from this?
The photo is from that moment.
From
yes.
from the final sub.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was from me actually
Yeah.
getting the
That is
sub
a
and not
wicked
getting-
photo. I love that photo.
Because if they
We'll have to throw it up.
Yeah, because if they would have called it on during the first photo attempt, like if I would have got the sub before, you see me celebrate, and then you see me like immediately like confused, like what's happening. So,
Yep.
but yeah, so I thought I'd share that one just because that's like, not only am I like studying and doing these things, like I'm trying to apply them in competition so that way I can like build my brand. You know?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about your mindset going into building a brand, your social media. Like that's a ton of work.
Yeah.
It's not only a ton of work to train, compete, make sure you're eating right, sleeping right, all the thing, being a stay-at-home dad. But then on top of that, being able to build a brand, be able to put yourself out there on social media. So how do you approach that?
I used to do videography and photography on my own. So I kind of understand how to shoot things, how to make things look really good, post. I would say I'm very rusty now. And a lot of what I do is on my phone. So it's relatively low quality compared to like shooting with a DSLR or a mirrorless and then throwing it into Premiere or whatever, So a lot of what I can do is just doing what I can do quickly on my phone, screen recording things and then breaking down because like sometimes the footage of my matches is not the sexiest. It's shot on a phone, wonky angles sometimes, but it's good enough for me to study.
Yeah.
And most people film their matches like that, so they get it. People want to learn. So the jiu-jitsu community does like seeing high quality footage too, but in terms of building the brand and my mindset going into it though, it's just whatever free time I have when I'm like, I learned this move a few months back. I remember watching this clip and then I hit it in competition. I'm going to make a video about it. It's a lot of technique breakdown. And then for me, the formula for success is you just use a trending audio and throw it in the background, lower it down, try to play with it to where like if the person has their phone volume on completely loud, that it's not blowing out their speakers. So you're putting in a little bit of like tender love and care into actually doing it. But in terms of the quality, it's not like I had a team photographer or videographer following me around, getting me rolling on a DSLR and it looks really nice. And it's been like color edited perfectly. It looks beautiful with that gold and blue that IBJJF has. But all that to say is I think for me, the formula for what I'm trying to do is just like, I'll post really cool pictures. If somebody gets a really cool picture of me, obviously tag the photographer and give them like credit for the dope photo and, try and come up with a cool quote or something that was motivating me that day, the song. And then if it's not a photo, like video wise reels, I'm trying to share techniques and breakdowns. So like the thing that's cool about it, I think, is that I'm not only a coach in real like person and stuff like that, but a lot of what I'm coaching in class, depending on the theme of the month, I'm trying to share videos that pertain to it. So that way my students, when they're on Instagram and they see a video of mine, they can save it, reference it for later, because it's not, sometimes people don't just learn by being in class and drilling. It's a refresher. It's like having a little note in a notebook that they can go back and look. It's like, oh, what did he do here? And they can go reference like a video that I made.
Yeah, that's great.
That's really cool. And I do that. I follow people that do that. So like, if that's what's getting me to follow people who do jiu-jitsu, then if I want other people who are doing jiu-jitsu to follow me, I feel like sharing technique rather than hiding it from people is what you need to do, because it's out there anyway. If people are studying, they're going to find good technique. I want to be the guy who's trying to share like what I'm doing to be successful with others.
Yes.
Because if they can use what I'm showing them to beat me, or not even that, but win their matches, then that's really cool. And I'm not the one to attribute for the success all the time either. It's like, that was Hoffa Mendez doing that 12 years ago.
Sure.
So
no, it's cool. I mean, you're bringing out, somewhat vintage videos and learning from them and breaking them down and using them yourself. I think it's really cool.
It's funny. I think in that clip, I think Hoffa hit that on a local black belt instructor. Yeah. In the background, the audio of the clip, I heard them say, "You can get out of this, Raider," which I think the guy's name is Justin Raider.
Oh, okay.
I don't know him personally, but I know that he's a black belt instructor in the Oklahoma City metro area.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so this was him at ADCC Worlds, I think 12 close to 12 or 11 years ago. It was like either 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
So it's just cool. Legends study legends. Hoffa has been a huge inspiration to me. I love Art of Jiu-Jitsu, and a lot of Steve's game, Professor Steve, it's AOJ oriented. A lot of what he does in the gi is like the Mendez bros. He's a big fan. So when I study technique, that's who I'm studying usually.
Now, do you, so you obviously still, you still do lessons and get coached from Professor Steve.
Yeah.
Do you still also do that with your father-in-law?
Yeah, so I didn't even talk about that. So aside from training in the garage, when I first started jiu-jitsu, it was like one private lesson a week with Professor Steve. And I would just go, and I was kind of like the dummy partner for my father-in-law at the time. But then I think Steve started to understand that there was some potential, maybe athleticism in me a little bit. And so he started catering the class and tailoring it towards developing me as a white belt. And so that's why you can see me when I explain things. Maybe I'm literally coaching and I sound just like Steve when I'm coaching, but that's because the way he explained things to me, his voice is the thing that's playing out in my head. So when I'm teaching or whatever, it's like I just try to teach it the way he showed it to me without over explaining, because that's like, I think the plague for any good instructor is talking too much sometimes and letting them run into the small details that they need to learn on their own. Because they'll learn, they'll be like, this isn't working, but it works for you. So what's happening here? Why is it? Sometimes it's little tiny adjustments, but if you over explain at the beginning, they get lost in those tiny details. Sometimes you just need to get them going, and then they run into the walls as they hit them, the little hurdles. And then that's exactly how Coach Steve taught me from close guard. The first technique I ever learned from him was arm drag to the back take from close guard. And that is a staple in my game to this day. And it's like the one thing that you can use constantly to create different sweeps off of and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'll just kind of talk about that. But yeah,
that's epic. So your father-in-law, what is like, does he still train a lot? What is he like?
He's still like once or twice a week.
Yeah, with Professor Steve and you?
Yeah, and then like every now and again he'll ride up to Tulsa where his buddies live and train with them.
That's
old
cool.
Man jiu-jitsu. But he's definitely the one who enlightened me and showed me the path.
Well, what belt is he?
Brown. He just got his brown belt not that long ago. He's been training since, I think, 2014. He's been training for a long time, close to 10 years.
Dang.
And he started when he was 40-something, 45.
Yeah.
No. He's 51 or 52 now. So, yeah, he started when he was like early 40s.
A lot of people do, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Jiu-jitsu doesn't matter what age you are.
He's competed. He's like, if not for Rob, my father-in-law, I wouldn't be doing jiu-jitsu. I wouldn't even be half as successful as I am. He's been a very positive male role model in my life, at like post-college especially. Yeah. I think all men need that. You need different mentors and people who can walk into your life and guide you, not necessarily hold your hand the whole way, but can show you things in regards to all aspects of life: physical, spiritual, emotional, everything, financial. There are men who are out there who are successful in some facet of their life, and that's what more men need, I feel like. This is a whole other topic we can get into. I know that we've been talking a lot about jiu-jitsu, but we can like circle back to
let's talk about it.
stuff.
Let's talk about life. Let's talk about stuff like that. I think I like how you mentioned your faith, and you mentioned like, giving God glory and credit. So, Adam, you got any questions about that? Maybe? No, you got any questions at all? No. Okay.
So I was just I was raised very religious. Actually, First Assembly God and Pentecostal was kind of the denominations of Protestantism that I was raised by. My grandparents, they're pastors of a First Assembly of God church right now, actually, as we speak. And I never forget Bible verses or remember them word for word, but I do remember raise your children up so they won't forget. Right. It's like the one.
Yeah. Raise your children,
bring them up in the right way, and they'll never neglect or forget.
Yeah. I think that's a proverb. No. Yeah. It's Proverbs.
I should know that, but that's one of those ones that I think sticks out to me because I lived a wretched life for a short period of time. When I went to college, I turned my back on God. I'm ashamed to admit it. I just started taking philosophy classes, started taking science classes, started realizing the nature of reality. And I totally abandoned faith. I would say that for a short period of time, I was agnostic. Maybe not, I wouldn't say totally atheist, but I was agnostic for sure. Turned my back on Christ, things like that. I knew that the story of his life, like I knew it was true, but at the same time, I thought it was more symbolism. I was like, religion, people only need it who are afraid of death. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only way I got to where I am now in such a positive position in my life is because of God and my grandparents diligently raising me and my brothers to never lose faith. And when things like, I guess, having Adeline, really my daughter, is what really brought me back, because so many things can go wrong with the pregnancy. I literally just fell to my knees when I found out and learned about it, that I was like, okay, please, whatever you do, don't let this baby suffer because of something I did, because of the way I turned my back on you. So I turned my life completely around 180, glorify him and honor him all I can do. I know that I'm not the perfect Christian. I still have a lot of things that I work on daily, not necessarily like saying that I have anger issues, but I am prone to getting angry sometimes. I get upset about the littlest things. I complain sometimes. Why would I be complaining when I live where I live and I do what I do? There are just things that as a man, I should be manning up and stepping up and doing better. And God and his infinite wisdom in the books of the Bible, there's so many psychologically significant stories we can use to guide us in our lives that have shaped me and who I am developmentally as a kid from then to now. And that's why I think that verse is really important, because it's like, although I kind of turned my back, I knew it was wrong. And then when I came back, instead of feeling rebuked and turned away, it kind of brings a tear to my eye, because there's times where I've like been really ashamed of what I've done or things that I've mocked or made fun of. And instead of being rebuked when I come back, all of my friends who are Christians who always told me, you're messing around, right? Like you're being a dummy, all those friends that are still Christian and still who helped me get back to where I am. They never turned their back on me, and in fact have welcomed me with open arms. And I couldn't be more like grateful. There's not like a place that I consistently go to church or that I seek fellowship out. I really get a lot of like the things that I crave spiritually and strength wise from the Lord, I get from songs and music. It's just how I was raised, playing instruments, learning bluegrass, gospel hymns. And I don't know, like I feel a million times better psychologically now, like being a Christian again. I guess not necessarily a born again, because I accepted Christ into my life and then turned my back on him. I've been baptized. I knew the right way and the path. And so I think
prodigal son. That's what that is.
You can look at every character in the Bible except for Jesus, and all of them have an inherent flaw or committed an ultra act of sin. Moses the murderer, there were a lot of
David
people
with adultery. I mean, everyone in the Bible,
has a personal
Saul
flaw.
who became Paul,
So
murders. All that, right? Yeah, it's horrible.
And those are significant things. I think the worst thing I ever done was turn my back on him. But I can proudly say that I feel like I'm happy again for the first time in a long time, because I've come back. And albeit though I'm not perfect, I understand that the only reason why I win these tournaments when I'm dead tired and when I'm hurt or when I'm just completely down and out of it after having a tough loss before is because I train really hard, and Jesus Christ gives me the strength to do that and gives me the strength to persevere. So
nice.
That's just how I feel about it.
I love it. I think what you're describing too is the prodigal son, right? The prodigal son was part of the family, part of all that, and then he leaves. He's like, I'm gonna go do my own thing, figure it out myself, be my own man or whatever. and then ultimately ends up in ruin, and then goes back to the father's house. The father opens up with open arms and, welcomes him back into the family. Right. That's what we as, Christians, like those who are far from God, they can always come back. They can always come back and be a part of the family again. And just because they're gone doesn't necessarily mean they're not part of the family. Probably maybe some weren't part of the family. Maybe some weren't Christians or never really truly gave their life to Christ. But I think for many people, they're out there and they're lost, but they have a family and a home to come back to.
I think part of the reason why I felt the shame that I did for doing, like, kind of turning my back on everything and becoming more scientific with my entire, because like I think you can still be a Christian and still understand physics.
100%.
Or theoretical physics and try to explain reality in ways that maybe the reason why we can't explain so many things is because it is a miracle. Creation is in itself a miracle, and the fact that life exists is a miracle. And if you read the Bible, it's why we're here. So I think there are things that we just can't explain, maybe, and it just, the unknown and not knowing what happens, it definitely brings me a sense of peace. And in all those songs, you hear about the suffering, you hear about the prodigal son, leaves on his own, finds himself in ruin, turns back around, finds his way back home. That's, in a nutshell, that's my life. And I didn't go like down a really, really dark path, but I still felt shame because I understood that a lot of the blessings I had up until that point in my life, as well as the losses, everything was his will. Everything was his plan.
Yeah.
One of my favorite verses, I think it's Malachi 3:10, is like, bring ye tithes into the storehouse that I may bless you guys with so many things that you wouldn't be able to fill your house with all of my blessings. And that one speaks to me the most because, like, you and my wife and I, like, when we were first dating in high school, I prayed to God so hard about, will she be the right woman for me? Please make her the right woman, because I was in love with her.
Yeah.
I was only a high schooler,
Oh, yeah,
You're
okay.
crazy, mad in love. But yeah, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if it will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Just saying that, like, I was going to church at the time. I was giving tithes and offerings at my grandparents' church, and praying heavily about whether or not my wife was the woman for me, and everything worked out.
Yeah.
And we've been together for close to 10 years, married for since 2021, August 2021, so 2 years married, close to 3 years married. But yeah, we've been together for a very long time. And I think we can get into that as an aspect of society. I wish and I hoped and I pray that more men find strong women in their lives, because I feel like that's where we lack a lot in today's society, are meaningful relationships, nuclear relationships, where, like, I think where men have flaws, women make up for it in a lot of ways and are like our anchor. So
Yeah.
I'm very blessed to have the woman that I have in my life, and I just wish more men had what I have, because I feel like it's so hard to probably meet somebody these days who is just as much a God-fearing Christian, or if not a God-fearing Christian, just somebody with a level head on their shoulders who's trying to always be the best version of themselves possible, because that's the
100%.
perfect slate to begin
Yep.
with, But
Let's talk about community and relationships, because I want to dive in a little bit to kind of how you pursue God in church a little bit. I heard this quote once, and I go to church. I go to the Vine Community Church. I go to a small group that I'm a part of. That has been a massive part of my life. So in the darkest times I've ever been through, if I didn't have my small group in my family, I would have probably crumbled under the pressure, right? I think the emphasis on community is important. Mm-hmm. Being a part of a local body, being part of small groups, being part of a Bible study, something, right? I once heard a quote that said, "Can you be a Christian and not go to church?" Yes. Can you be a Christian? Can you be a Christian, go to church? Yes. But your kids probably won't be.
yeah,
Right? kids who like if who their parents are Christian, but their kids aren't, right? Your kids aren't Christian just because you are, right?
They didn't grow up going to Sunday school.
Right. I think the importance of kids growing up in church is vital. Not just so they can, like obviously they can hear the gospel, like that they should be hearing that from their parents and like being taught about the Bible and all that stuff too. But seeing how important the community aspect is with the church, seeing how important the community aspect is, how they serve one another, how they bear each other's burdens. I would just encourage you. I'm going to hear your mindset on this too. I would encourage you to be a part of a church, be a part of our community.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard work. It's like finding a good gym. I mean, honestly, it's like finding a good jiu-jitsu gym. I got lucky that I went to this, the Forge and like fell in love with it, and the training partners are amazing, and like the coaches are incredible, and then like it's awesome, right? Like couldn't ask for anything better. Sometimes people find that church where it's like, yeah, this is like great fit. It's like the preaching's great, the community's great. Like, there's no perfect church, there's no perfect gym, but sometimes it can be work to find that right place. It can be work to find that right community that aligns, and it's never going to fully align. There's going to be theological differences that maybe you don't agree with, or so on and so forth. But I'd like to hear your mindset on that and everything.
I think church 100% is important. The fellowship, without the community and common like shared grief, suffering, things like that, you don't really have. When you're alone, all you have is the word of the Lord and like prayers and things that you can send up. So luckily for me, the backbone with which I fall and lean on a lot are my grandparents, because they still are pastors. Oftentimes when we do go to church, it's their church. So I haven't been doing a lot of active seeking for a while, though. In college, I went to Life Church just because I liked the praise and worship aspect of their music. It was really good.
Yeah.
But there's something about going back home and listening to the bluegrass style of stuff. It's bad, but sometimes it's really good.
Yeah. No, I mean that's an act of worship.
Some
right?
some people don't like bluegrass, but it's just the way I was raised. So
yeah. No, if you like it and it helps you get closer to the Lord, I think that's amazing.
But yeah, for me, I totally agree with what you're saying sentiment wise. Children need to grow up in church, because without that early childhood exposure, having friends in church, having things that you did in church. Like I remember doing penny marches as a kid growing up, because growing up, I went to church every day. And I think that's a lot of the reason why when I got older and went to college, like the prodigal son, I didn't want to go anymore because I was forced to.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You know what I mean? So
I actually recently just started going back to church. I went for, I would say 8 months. I didn't go. I went to my small group, but I stopped going to church for like 8 months for a lot of different reasons. But I've recently started going to church again. And honestly, it can be tough. It's like, man, I don't really want to, but I know it's good for me. I know it's good to be, I'm a very introverted person to begin with. Like even going to like starting out going to the Forge, like super introverted, super tough, like especially it's a new sport. But I'm the same way when it comes to church, even to this day. Now, my small group, I'm very comfortable with because I've known them for like 3+ years and, have done life with them and all that stuff. But for me, like going to church still can be a challenge. So I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm also preaching from a place like I've been there. I'm in that, like I have not gone. I've gone, not gone, going again. Sometimes don't even feel like it, uncomfortable, but know that it's for my good at the end of the day.
Yeah. For me, I wish I could go more. I feel like time is like a problem for me. And it's not that I don't make time for God in my life. I think making time for the fellowship is like the hard part for me, because I spend a lot of time training and at the Forge.
Yeah.
And then when I'm not there, we are going out. So like I always make my efforts, I try in everything that I'm doing to glorify and honor him, like I'm trying to live a life free of sin. I'm trying to walk the path of Christ the best that I possibly can. I know I'm not perfect, but when I feel like I'm down and out and I have a question, I can call my grandpa and he'll just totally give me some wisdom from the Bible. Like, I mean, he can quote verses that pertain to certain situations or circumstances in your life. So he's a strong anchor in my life. So same with my grandma. And growing up, I remember they would like fast and stuff and still be as diligent as they are, working as hard as they did. They showed us what it meant to like, cause they're they came from a life of nothing and built them a life of meaningful wealth, like the American dream, if you think about it. And so, when I'm always like down and out, I know where to turn in the Bible, where I can look for inspiration. Cause not that I read a bunch on my own, like straight out of the Bible, but it's like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need to see a verse that I can use to apply to my day and pray about. And that's a lot of times what I do. A lot of my faith comes from prayer, not as much from fellowship. I wish I went to a church, and I totally agree with you. When we do go, it's at my grandparents' church, and my goal is to find one that we can fit into our schedule, that we can go and raise our kids up in, because I do believe that it is important as well.
And I think they're out there, right? I mean, some
They
churches
are.
do
They
Saturday, and
I
a lot
know-
of churches, I mean, there are a lot of house churches that meet on different days of the week.
Yeah.
There's even, small groups meet all throughout different churches have different small groups that meet a bunch of different times. So I think it's definitely out there. I think it maybe take a little work to find, but I think it'll be a big part of your spiritual growth and journey. I mean,
I wish sometimes social media, like, it's important that it's here, but I wish it didn't exist, because without social media, there's no connection, or like without going out and meeting people. And the places you want to go out as an adult with kids is a church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, part of me sometimes feels I was born in the wrong generation, because it's easy to find time to go to church when you're, living the American dream, and without a lot of like the aspects of modernity. But
not much no-gi back then though. So.
a lot of my faith, though, it's like when I'm out working in the field, like at the house, and I'm working hard, doing whatever I'm doing, putting the deer stand back together with the father-in-law and my brother, getting the plot ready for hunting. Like, everything I'm doing in preparation, I feel like is serving and honoring the Lord, because that's what the Lord tries to teach us, is like those who make sacrifices and work hard will reap the blessings and the benefits later on. And so when we're toiling in the field, like, I don't know, there's just something about that old cowboy farmer aspect of life that is what speaks to me.
Yeah.
And is what has
I think what
invigorated me with faith more so. And like all the suffering that I've done on the pull-up bar and the push-ups and the squats, like, he suffered way more than I did, or that I ever will, and he wouldn't give me a cross too heavy that I couldn't bear on my own. So
yeah, I think what you're describing is a lifestyle of worship, a willingness to sacrifice your time, your body, yourself for the greater purpose, for what you're trying to achieve.
My goal is to, from now on, anytime I'm on the podium, it's pointing to the sky, because I understand that that's where the strength came from. It's not, I'm not saying I'm number one. Look at me, I'm number one. It's more like what Khabib used to do when he would win, is like, me, no, him, everything. You know what I mean? So now that am on the path that I am and walking with the faith that I have, I feel like a new soaring level of confidence when I compete. Awesome. And I know that there are a lot of Christians who compete too. So we're all up against one another too when it comes to competition. But at the same time, it's like that's what's cool about it too. A lot of what I get fellowship too is like on the competition mats. So
yeah, no, I get it.
Most of us are like that. So
and I love getting fellowship. I mean, we have a lot of great Christian guys that go to the Forge.
Church, or at the Forge, yeah. I was going to say at the church.
And not everyone's Christian, and that's fine. Like, it's a place literally for everyone. Like, everyone's welcome. But yeah, there's a lot of great guys, and it's a great experience. So I love going to the Forge. I'm at the Forge more than I'm at church. I mean, that's for sure.
I know.
So
I feel the same. But that's why I'm like, when I
spend the time. Yeah, I spend time with those guys more than I spend time with my own family sometimes.
But I like to add to that it's like, when I pray, I'm praying that I glorify and honor him everything I do on and off the mat. When I'm on that mat and I'm teaching people self-confidence through jiu-jitsu, that's, I feel like, honoring the Lord.
Oh yeah.
I'm not teaching them how to be somebody who can maim another person, but I'm teaching them how to control and use the gentle art of control. And yes, you can totally hurt somebody with jiu-jitsu, but you can also protect others and protect yourself, and not hurt somebody, like, ruin their lives, with jiu-jitsu. So, a part of, like, I guess that would be a big aspect of like the fellowship aspect that I get. Not everybody, like you said, at the Forge is Christian though, and that's not a problem. But what everybody does share is that commonality of trying to better themselves. And I think that's just inherent in anybody that's practitioner of jiu-jitsu. So it's just the way I was raised. I was ashamed that I did what I did, but I'm turned back around, and I know it'd be nice to like be able to go to church more often. And I know my grandparents would love to have me more often because they like always ask me to play the guitar when I go.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where it's like time is kind of.
Yeah. And no judgment for me. I get
Yeah,
it, dude.
I know.
I've been on that journey of getting back to church and doing all those things. So it's absolutely no judgment for me. Just encouragement at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's what I want to offer is encouragement. So
Yeah.
and I love it, dude. I love that you're open with your faith, and I love that win or lose, you're still wanting to glorify God and give credit to Him for everything. So that's awesome.
Yep. Without him, without family, without coaches, without my friends supporting me at all times like they do, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So it really, like, there's a lot of things in life that have led me to where I am, and some tragic, some really great. But without all of those experiences, for better or for worse, when I was younger, you know, some things that you just couldn't explain. I'm at where I'm at, and I'm in the best, I feel like, phase of my life thus far. So, but yeah,
It's cool.
just feels good.
Awesome. Well, man, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I think we went over 2 hours.
Probably.
Yeah. So, man, it's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your
you guys for having
journey in jiu-jitsu. I'm super excited to literally get to witness a lot of it firsthand and get to train with you and learn from you. So, and thanks for coming on and sharing everything.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to be back. You just whenever hit me up.
Yeah, we'll do.
Come on.
Cool.